Words Matter to Us is an online community that wants to offer virtual writing and open mic opportunities on the second and fourth Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. Pacific Time. They'll provide updates and our Zoom link on linktr.ee/Your Words Matter to Us.
Hello, I am Daniel Westbay for CloseLook Productions. Guys, I got a great show for you today. But before I get to that, I just wanted to come on here and talk about the event that this guy's a part of, JR. Laugh Wild Comedy, teaming up with House of Comedy, and they're bringing an awesome event called Comedy Makes Impact, which is actually working with a nonprofit organization called We Make Impact, which you can find them on Instagram right under that name. They clean water. So for countries that don't have clean water, and I think that's just a great endeavor, and it's really cool for these two companies to come together to bring the best of what Canada has to offer. Go on to Facebook and find them on their Comedy Makes Impact. It will all be right here, so please go check them out. Anyways, guys, enough rambling from me. Let's get on with the interview. That's what you're here for. All right, take it away, Past Daniel. Hello and welcome. I am Daniel Westbay. And guys, you are in for a real treat. This guy has been blowing up all over Lower Mainland. And I am so happy, I'm so lucky to be here with him. We're just outside Metrotown. So without further ado, because of COVID, I set up the cameras a little bit different. And you're gonna see that. I give you, please introduce yourself. And what is it that you do?
My name is JR. I'm a stand-up comedian. I try my best at it. And I also book and run a bunch of shows here in Vancouver and trying to give comedians a spot during this pandemic and keep comedy alive. That's what I do.
And speaking of comedy, before we get to, because I want to know about your life, I want to know about how you got to where you are. How has it been for you thus far?
Comedy completely?
Comedy across the board, yeah.
Yeah, so, well, the thing is, I started comedy. I'm still a newbie, kind of what they consider a newbie. Last June, I did my first stand-up, 2019. So it's just been a year and a half. The problem being there's a 7-month COVID right in the middle of that year and a half. So it's been a little different of an experience for most comics under 2 years. Mm-hmm. But instead of not doing anything, we kind of just built our own shows and made shows happen anyway. And so it wasn't much of a break, and it's been pretty great. I gotta say, it's been a fast track, less than 2 years of comedy knowledge and learning.
I've been to some of your shows and it really does feel that way. I've been surprised. I didn't know there were this many comics in the Lower Mainland. Like, you only see them when they get Netflix specials, right, and on the Comedy Central and all that stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, he's been blowing up. But that's not why you're here. We're here always about the journey as to how they ended up where they are, right? The people behind everything. I just want to know, JR, what's your story? How did you end up being where you are?
That's a mouthful, because as an old, like, I'm 39. I just turned 39, and a lot of comedians that are just a year and a half in, they usually start in their early 20s. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Ontario, just outside of Toronto, in a place called Brampton, mostly in Mississauga, Peel area. And comedy was not something I ever did growing up. I didn't start in my early 20s like most comedians. What I did was, music was my first love. I started drums at like 7 years old in the church. Came from a very religious family. Wow. And by the age of 13, when I started high school, I signed up. I didn't know in grade 8, I signed up for a guitar class in grade 9 in high school. So when I first day of school, grade 9, high school, new school, everything, freaked out. I walk into this class. I don't even know what it is until I walk into it, and I find out it's a guitar class, and I just couldn't put down the guitar since. So I was madly in love. I found a passion I loved. Then I did the whole band thing around Toronto. I was in bands growing up, toured around a little bit, tried to write, tried to meet people, but it never accumulated to what I wanted it to be. And I realized the problem with that, it was, you always had to work with other people. And I'm a very passionate person, and I do a lot. Like, I play guitar now, I play bass, and I play drums. So I tend to completely write a song by myself, and then I would bring it to a band. And then to have 4 other people have the same idea as you and focus and where you want to go with it doesn't happen. You always have to compromise. And I always felt like my art was not being fully revealed. So Anyway, I go through all that years and years of just bands and trying to find people with the same passion and drive and goal as mine. And it just never happened. And then growing up being always a huge fan of comedy, like stand-up comedy from as young as I can remember, I was watching comedy specials in my room with my hand on the dial to change it in case my mom or dad walked in.
The dial guys.
Yeah. So let me explain. As a 39-year-old comic, we used to have to get up and change the channels on our TV with a dial. We only got 13 channels and 2 of them were French.
Oh, so true.
So it was not much. But besides that, I also wrote with a group of people for sketch comedy too, because I always wanted to do comedy. But again, you're working with other people. You're compromising your real ideas. Last year, I'm watching something on YouTube called Kill Tony. It's with Tony Hinchcliffe.
Sounds familiar.
He's a professional comedian who runs a show out of the Comedy Store in LA. Every Monday night for 2 hours, you go to the store, you put your name in a bucket, they draw it on stage, you go up, you get 90 seconds to tell jokes in front of him and a special guest and other people. And then they critique you on it and interview you. People were going up and telling these jokes. Sorry, not 90 seconds, it's 60 seconds. So you have 60 seconds to do it. But I'm listening to these and some of them are so cringy and horrible. And I'm like, oh, this is horrible. They're going to rip this guy apart. And here they are going, how many times have you been on stage? And the guy would be like, once or 5 times, 4. They're like, that was really good. And I'm like, that's what's considered good? So as conceited as this may sound, I was like, I could do that. I just had this like eureka moment of, oh shit, like I could do that. I could write, and being a stand-up comedian, you don't run your jokes by anybody. I don't need to compromise with 4 other people anymore. I write my jokes, I tell them on stage. If I don't want to, I don't. If I do, I do. From the beginning and the end. So I found a love. That was October 2018. By the end of January 2019, I'd sold all my stuff in Ontario, sold my car, sold all my most of my belongings, my instruments, and I rented a place on Craigslist here in Burnaby, BC, and I jumped on a plane, and February 1st I was here. And that was it, with a couple suitcases.
It always fascinates me that sometimes something great, in order for it to happen, you kind of needed everything to crumble.
Yeah.
Not crumble in a bad sense, but like just accept that crumbling to rebuild something even better.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I know what you mean by that crumble. And I was at a point where things were crumbling, and in a negative way. And like I had a job and things were fine in that sense, but no significant other, no kids, but I wasn't happy. I never dreamt of a 9 to 5. I always dreamt of music or comedy or something. And it was either brought away or give this one more shot. Like give something one more shot. So it was like, man, I got to do it.
So why leave though? You're in Ontario. You're near the epicenter of comedy.
Everybody, and a lot of people tell me that. And I was in a state where I needed a change of environment. I needed to get out of where I was. I needed a real fresh start. And a fresh start was sometimes leaving everything behind and starting over with friends, family. Yeah, I left it all, man. But the environment wasn't good. The atmosphere wasn't good anymore. I just needed, and my buddy was here. My best friend from Ontario had moved here a couple years earlier. And he was always a positive force in my life. My friend Drew. And when I told him this, and he's like, get out here and start over. Like he's always wanted to save me. He always knew there was something special about me. So he was like, I just want you to, anything, you doing something, come, just
get your butt
So yeah,
down
it was to get your butt here and start over. And I didn't think twice. Yeah.
So what did your family think? Did you have people that are special that you left behind? I think this is an important aspect to try to convey that making these decisions aren't always
it's so true. But what you have to understand, and I come from a large group of friends too, like and not just people I've known a couple of years. I mean, my friends from high school are still my best friends today, which is really weird and not common at all. But these people are my family, and I come from a big family as well, but they're all older than me. My siblings, they already have their own families. They have their own things going on.
Oh, okay.
And all my friends, all in the last 10 years, got married and popped out a bunch of kids. So everybody's doing their life thing. But we still stayed super close, so it was really hard. But you come to a point where you have to make the decision for you. It doesn't matter what they think. And a lot of them were like, they've seen me go through things band-wise, decisions. And a lot of people have grandiose plans and say things. but don't follow through on them.
Don't follow through.
I think they were more surprised the day that I actually flew out that it actually happened.
Well, it's because that's a real thing. It's a crazy to think, because I think we have different paths, but I mean, it's the same thing for me wrestling. When I told my father, I was like, I'm going to do this thing. He was like, ha, no.
Right.
And then I just went and I did it. And
Yeah.
to this, now when I do things that are a little bit unorthodox, he's like, okay, he's made this happen before.
He's done this.
He'll do it
He's
again.
not just talking about it though.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing, and a lot of people just say things and they have those ideas, but they don't follow through. And now that I'm doing this, the most of the messages and things I get from my friends are, I'm envious of you. You got to do this. And I was like, anybody could do it. You can. But you decided to, you went the family route, or you went a different route. And that's hard to do when you choose that. Now you have to stick to your job that you have because you bought this house and you have 2 or more kids now and a wife. You can't really just drop things and start anything.
I agree.
So my decision was, if I didn't have that, what's holding me back? Nothing. Nothing's holding me back.
So this is the only chance.
This is the only chance. It was this or just give in and try that route. And I didn't feel like that. I knew I had something special, and I still know it's something in music too. That will come again because music is my first love.
So you do music also?
Oh,
I know
time.
you. I know you've done the music.
No, but music is still a huge part of my life, like huge. Eventually, you will hear those things come out of me too, and I'll release some things because I can't just drop that ever. And the fact that I did this, it's like I could just do that too.
Do you have other bandmates or other people you collaborate with? No.
Me and Andrew, my buddy here that got me out here, we used to do music as well back in Ontario. So he still dabbles a bit. He's a singer, keyboardist type of guy, and I'm a guitar, drum, other guy. So we had our own studio in Ontario and everything too.
Wow.
We will do things again, and the way it is today, you can do your own thing. You could be like, I could put everything together myself on my computer and play all those instruments and release it. The only thing I can't do is sing. You don't want to hear that. So that's why I was always a victim to someone else's approval, like someone else to work with me.
Yeah.
Unless I just wanted to do instrumental stuff. But
damn, a lot of artistic, and I think that's why I wanted you on here, because you talked a little bit about this stuff, and I thought that because you're about the same age as me, I think, maybe.
I'm 39.
Oh, I'm 33. Well, we're close enough.
I'm old, I told you.
Tomato. It's the same thing. But I think it's important for people to realize that your life doesn't end. I find that when you're in teenagers to 20s, you think that you have to have everything figured out right now, to do it all right now, when really most of the time, like statistically, most of the people who actually get their shots or start their superstardom, whatever it may be, they actually like in their 30s.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you just have a better frame of mind for that stuff.
And honestly, I say it now when people tell me they're 28, they're 27, I'm like, you're a kid. Yeah. You're a kid still. You are still a kid. You have not experienced things you may think you have. And I know this sounds so cliche, and this is what everybody else's parents say. You haven't experienced anything, but it's really true. And that's so true too, even in the comedy world. Really, a lot of comedians don't get their like huge push or their huge drive until their 30s. But a lot of those comics, that's my only kind of regret. I hate to say the word regret. I don't regret it, but they spend their 20s to 30s learning comedy and learning the stage
craft,
stuff and learning that and learning the craft. And then they're finally a pro. In comedy, they say, everybody says, it's just a rule, I guess, amongst comedians, but not really. But you're not a real comedian or a pro comedian until you're a decade in. So a decade, yeah. Wow. Seriously, I know.
That's a long time.
I don't believe it. I'm going against that grain because I'm going to change that, because starting at 38, I don't want to be 48 and then finally be considered a comedian. Like, no, I'm going to change that. I'm a comedian now. I've been kind of fast-tracked along this comedian game, and I feel like I have progressed a lot faster than a lot of other people within a year and a half, with COVID dropped in the middle of it.
Speaking of the infamous COVID, we'd be remiss if we didn't discuss this. And guys, that is why you see the setup the way it is now. we cannot really be as close as I'd like to be.
Me and Daniel love being close. So.
So has COVID affected you? Like, how has it affected
Personally?
you? Has it affected you emotionally, professionally?
Yeah, I got to tell you. So January, February of this year, just before COVID, pre-COVID, I guess, BC still, before COVID.
I like that. Okay.
Yeah, the world. So this is the thing too. Sorry, this is a little sidetrack, but I really think this is the time we start again. Like we've had BC and AD, but that's 2,000 years ago. Let's do it again now. Now we have BC before COVID and after COVID
I like
AC.
that.
So it's time to make a new one. Like let's start year one again next year. But my point being, January and February was a huge spot for me. Like things were just about to take off as far as shows. Working with Laugh Wild Comedy and Nina, like that was we were just about, we got all these new shows and then bam, like it's stopped. It was an immediate abrupt stop. That hit hard. Lost my job from it, my day job. Obviously as a comedian, you gotta have a day job still because we make tens of dollars.
I know all about that performing life.
Right, as an artist, you know. Mentally, it really messed me up. For the first month, I couldn't do anything. I didn't write. I wasn't creative in any way. I was kind of going crazy inside. And then, and I always told myself, I'll never do Zoom comedy. What the hell is Zoom comedy?
Yeah.
That sounds horrible. That's the worst thing ever. I don't even want to think about it. And then I got asked to do one spot from a close friend, and I was just like, it was over a month later. It's kind of finally gathering my pieces back together that from this huge, I thought everything was about to go amazing to nothing. She asked me to do one spot. I did it, and I realized it was like almost immediate after that. That felt so good to do. As much as I still hate Zoom comedy, just doing something.
Yeah.
It all of a sudden I started writing again. Everything started picking up. Nina asked me to start. She had an online show going. She asked me to fill in hosting because she's always super busy. Even during a pandemic, she's like, I got all these shoots to do and filming.
It's so true.
And I'm just like, of course you do. She's like, would you host and fill in? Sure. And then that filling in continued, and I just kept doing it. And eventually, yeah. So I warmed up to it. But there was a month and a half there where things looked pretty dire, and but that's, my mentality does that. I can, it's waves. It's when things are going really good, things are great. When you get that abrupt stop, it just affects, I wear my heart on my sleeve a bit about that stuff, and it affects me. But I couldn't have been, it's weird. We kept things going as much as we could. And I feel like we kind of, I know we're still in COVID, but things are obviously getting better. But we kind of, at least we got an early start getting back to comedy.
And guys, he speaks about Nina, a wonderful person who is taking over also comedy. And we'll probably have her on the show also at some point. But yeah. She's always, it's amazing how the mind works, her mind. And same with you. I find that a lot of artistic people that I do meet, they deal with this, because she's an insomniac.
Yeah,
Let's face facts
absolutely.
here.
Yep.
And even I'm up until 4 a.m. sometimes when I got to edit or do stuff. I don't know about you, but like I find that all these creative people, they often have like their highs of highs and then their depression of lows and stuff.
It's almost like we all suffer from bipolar disorder. I'm not making a joke about that because I do have bipolar disorder. I have been diagnosed. I spent my life struggling with it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, manic depressive bipolar type 2 disorder, where the highs are really high, the lows are really low, and that's just, I don't know. I feel like that is an artistic thing. It is. It's we're more in tune with emotions and creativity and things like that. I feel like we're more in touch with those things.
And so how do you, not so much manage it, but like, how do you, I guess manage is an okay
what it
word,
is,
right? No?
Being 39 and being like, I did all the medication from the age of 13 until into my early 30s. And all they do is they just keep trying new meds on you, and what works. There's so many different kinds in and out of certain places to deal with it. But throughout that whole time, what you do is you learn tools and you learn how to handle it. You learn how to deal with it, and you start realizing things aren't a certain way. Like, you look at things differently. It's just about getting those tools. I've been through it enough that now I know when things are a certain way and when things are happening and why. And able to look at it, almost take myself out of it for a sec and look at it differently. But those are tools you learn throughout 20 something years of dealing with it. So not everybody has those, and it's not easy. But I took myself off the meds. I was like, I don't need it. Like, meds were really messing with me, and they mess with your creativity too.
Yeah. No, I'm just trying to get more clear, because we do get a lot of types of viewers, different people who deal with different things. I'm just trying to see if there's any like way to navigate through this, because you're right. I have another friend who suffers from severe depression, and they tried lighting, like mood lighting and all these things, and he didn't, none of that stuff was working for him, and he just absolutely hated all that stuff. And now he's managing it, but it's not without like friends and support and circle also, I think. So I don't know if that also plays a part in help you
unfortunately with these things, you tend to keep them to yourself too.
That's true.
There's a stigma about them when you talk about, and it's probably everybody else will be like, no, it's okay. We don't. That's fine. It's not them. You feel crazy talking about it.
Dustin and I did our podcast last Sunday, and we discussed this on a show. It says over 80% of men do not discuss their emotional feelings.
I made a post about this actually on Facebook a couple days ago, because I've been going through a state of it myself recently. And it's more as a comedian, I have to make it kind of funny, but it's actually a strong statement of how long do I have to hold my feelings in before I'm considered a real man, and that was my post. But that comes from a real thing, and this is actually something I'm working on too, and I'm working on it in my comedy about addiction and male and stuff like that. But male suicide in North America is 3 to 1, sometimes 4 to 1.
It is, yes.
And that's things I've had to look up recently, because I'm starting to look into these. I'm actually designing a set around that, like a full comedic set about real things like addiction, male suicide, because we don't discuss these things.
Nope.
And a lot of those numbers come from less places for men to go to get specific help, and all those things. And it's a serious thing that needs to be discussed. But yeah, that's the stigma, and especially with men. Like, if I go tell my best bud real feelings, it's not a good look as far as, and I'm just saying that, not even just maybe he might look at, but they treat you different. You will be looked at differently.
It's so true, isn't it? It's like
It's like, as much as they say that's okay, we're here for you. Now there's a weird air.
They're like, well, I don't know if I could say this around
They
them.
may censor themselves with certain things. They may treat me differently. Like, hey, how you doing? You okay? Stop. And so, that's the thing, man. That's the stigma to it, and it's hard. And so as a person, it's hard to get help because you don't talk about it. And
so now that we said that, you said you make sets based on what happens around you. How long does it take you to get in that mindset to make a set, or even know if it's going to work? Yeah,
so this is a new revelation that I've come to. It's like, when it comes to comedy, I can just get up there and tell jokes and make people laugh. But I want to have some sort of voice behind that as well. Almost teaching without them knowing they're learning something.
Fair, I like that. Yeah.
They're laughing as they're learning. Like, it's almost like instead of me going up and saying knock knock jokes or whatever, like just no bits I just mean things that don't have substance. It's more about talk about things like, I have a huge past of addiction and also these mental disorders. So it's like, and nobody discusses that in comedy. I feel like there's no addiction comedian. Like, I mean, I don't mean to be the voice for all of those things. I just mean, I want to challenge myself. Is there a way I can talk about addiction for 15 minutes on stage and make it informative but hilarious? Yeah, I do. I really do think there is a way I can do that. So that's what I've been focusing on. And a buddy of mine, Mark Hughes, helped me notice that, because he goes, talking to him, and he's been a real support person. He's another pro comic here, and he saw me, he snatched me up, and like, he's just kind of like, there's something different about you, which a lot of people do to me in my life. Like, Nina did it to me. But it's about, like, they grab me and they go, there's something different about you, and they want to get to know me, and they want to chat, and they want to mentor me, and that's what he's done. And he told me, you know what, man, with your past, why don't you get on stage and actually talk about addiction? Nobody does that. And I mean addiction as in drugs. I mean addiction as in food. I can discuss these things and actually be someone who knows about these things. And it clicked to me. I'm like, that's my voice. I think that's my voice a bit. I don't mean all the time, but at least have some sort of set that if I want to perform something and then teach people.
Man, you just said wait, because I remember seeing your Instagram posts
Yeah.
prior. However, we are running out of time. And I'm so angry.
It's okay.
Guys, sorry.
Okay, man.
We might keep this going. Hang on, okay? Guys, due to, obviously, you see a little bit different COVID restrictions. Please be safe out there. We're not done. I think I'm going to keep this going. So please stay tuned for the next part. All right, guys, get out there. Have fun. Thank you, JR.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. Yeah.
Thanks to each and every one of you. And remember, just be nice to one another. You know, go out there and get inspired. I will talk to you guys later.